The jungle of Xyler was not a place for the eyes. It was a riot of noise and confusion. The canopy was so thick it blocked out the sun, creating a permanent, steamy twilight. Vines as thick as a man's leg hung like curtains, obscuring everything beyond arm's reach. The air was heavy with the smell of rot and wet earth, and the constant shrieking cacophony of a million insects created a wall of sound. For Krell, the patrol leader of the SYL Vanguard, the jungle was a nightmare of too much information. His species had evolved on the open plains of a high-gravity world. They were prey, and survival meant seeing everything all the time. Krell's eyes were large, bulbous spheres positioned on the far sides of his skull. He did not have a front and he did not have a back. He lived in a constant 360-degree panorama of the world. On the plains, this vision made him a god. He could see the shadow of a hawk miles to his left while watching a lion stalk through the grass miles to his right. But in the Xyler jungle, his panoramic vision was a curse. Every leaf that twitched in the wind was a potential threat. Every shadow that shifted was an attack. His brain was flooded with data from every direction simultaneously. The jungle was a suffocating sphere of movement, and Krell was spinning in the center of it, his weapon jerking back and forth at phantoms. "Hold position." Krell hissed to his squad, his voice tight with panic. His head swiveled wildly, trying to process the green chaos surrounding them. "I saw movement. To the east. No, the west. Behind us." His squad mates, equally terrified, fired blindly into the dense undergrowth. Plasma bolts sizzled through the wet leaves, illuminating the fog for a split second before slamming into tree trunks. They hit nothing but wood and water. They couldn't see what was hunting them. Because the thing hunting them didn't look at the world in a sphere. It looked in a tunnel. 200 yards away, crouched motionless in the mud beneath the root system of a massive iron tree, Sergeant Sarah Vance watched the light show. She didn't see the whole jungle. She ignored the brightly colored beetles crawling over her boots. She ignored the monkey-like creatures swinging in the canopy above her head. She ignored the swaying of the ferns in her peripheral vision. Her entire world was narrowed down to a tight, focused cone of reality directly in front of her face. Vance was a human. She was a predator in the purest evolutionary sense. Her eyes were jammed into the front of her skull, facing forward, locking onto a single point in space. She had sacrificed the ability to see behind her for the ability to know, with absolute intuitive certainty, exactly how far away something was. She watched the plasma bolts flash through the trees. She didn't need a rangefinder. She didn't need to do math in her head. Her brain instinctively triangulated the position of the shooters based on the angles of the light through the trees. 200 yards, she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible over the rain. Cluster of 3. Panicked fire. They don't know where I am. Vance moved. She didn't run. Running made noise. Running broke the visual pattern of the jungle. She flowed. She stayed low to the ground, moving from the cover of a fallen log to the shadow of a boulder. Her movements were deliberate and heavy. When she had to cross a gap in the foliage, she didn't hesitate to gauge the distance. She knew exactly how hard she had to push off the mud to clear the gap without shaking the nearby branches. Krell and his SYL squad were moving again, pushing deeper into the tangle, trying to outrun the feeling of being watched. They were moving faster now, desperation overriding caution. They were stumbling over roots they couldn't judge the height of, slamming into vines that looked further away than they actually were. Their panoramic vision flattened the dense environment into a confusing wall of green. Vance tracked them not by seeing them but by seeing the path. She saw the broken twig at eye level. She saw the slide mark in the mud. She saw the path through the trees in 3 glorious dimensions, a map of depth and distance that laid itself out before her. She cut them off. She didn't follow their trail. She looked at the terrain, judged the distances, and realized they were heading for a bottleneck, a narrow gorge where the river cut through the rock. She moved to intercept. She reached the edge of the gorge and climbed a slick, moss-covered rock formation. She found a perch 20 feet off the ground, wedged between 2 thick branches, completely obscured by a curtain of hanging vines. She waited. The rain intensified, hammering against her helmet, washing the mud from her armor. She didn't move a muscle. She entered the stillness that only a forward-facing predator knows, the total, singular focus on the kill zone. Minutes later, Krell led his squad into the gorge below. They were frantic now, their heads snapping back and forth, trying to look everywhere at once. The gorge walls were close, compressing their panoramic vision into a chaotic blur of wet stone and rushing water. Krell stopped. He sensed something. He looked up toward the rock formation where Vance was hidden. His massive, side-facing eyes took in the entire cliff face. He saw the vines, the rocks, the falling water. And deep within the shadows, behind 3 distinct layers of obscuring leaves, he saw the faint outline of a helmet. Krell raised his weapon. He saw her. But his brain froze. Because his eyes were so far apart on his head, he couldn't focus both of them on that single distant point hidden behind the clutter. The vines in the foreground blended with the rock in the midground, which blended with the human in the background. It was a flat, confusing mess. Was she 10 feet away, hidden by a large leaf? Or 50 feet away, hidden by a small one? Was that dark shape her head, or just a knot in the wood behind her? Krell hesitated. His brain couldn't calculate the shot through the visual noise. Up on the perch, Sarah Vance didn't have that problem. She wasn't looking at the vines. She wasn't looking at the rock. Her 2 eyes, working in perfect unison, punched a hole through the clutter. Her right eye saw past the left side of the hanging vine. Her left eye saw past the right side of it. Her brain stitched the 2 images together, erasing the obstacle and leaving only the target in crystal clear 3D. She saw Krell. She saw the exact distance, 42 yards. She saw the angle of the rain. She saw the gap between his armor plates. The world outside that gap ceased to exist. The noise of the jungle faded. The rain didn't matter. There was only the tunnel and the target at the end of it. Krell was still trying to resolve the image, still trying to decide if what he was seeing was real, when Vance squeezed the trigger. The heavy kinetic round cleared the barrel with a deafening crack. It punched through the first layer of vines. It punched through the second. It didn't deflect. It didn't tumble. It flew straight down the invisible line that Vance's eyes had carved through the chaos. The impact threw Krell backward into the rushing water of the gorge. His weapon flew from his hands, firing a useless bolt of plasma into the sky. The remaining SYL soldiers panicked instantly. Their leader was gone, struck down by an invisible force from an impossible angle. They didn't try to fight. They turned and scattered, scrambling back the way they came, their panoramic vision filled only with terror. Up in the perch, Vance didn't cheer. She didn't relax. She worked the bolt of her rifle, ejecting the spent casing with a metallic clack. She kept the rifle shouldered, her eyes scanning the gorge below, looking for the next movement, the next target. The jungle was still a riot of noise and confusion. The rain still hammered down. But the tunnel was clear. The predator watched and waited and focused forward,